the moment a lot of Bitcoin bulls have been waiting for. The cryptocurrency finally decoupling from high-growth tech names.
The market continues to hold, and it's holding because just new money coming in.
So this is, I think, going to be the largest generation of wealth that the world has seen in the shortest period of time. My current allocation is probably 70% ETH, 5% Bitcoin, and then a tail of others. So why that allocation? It's nothing against Bitcoin. It's not against anything else. It's because I'm a financial markets guy and we use risk curves. So at certain points in the cycle, in the middle of a bull market, you want to take as much risk as possible. So you want to go to the more speculative end of the market. So firstly, I isolated the fact that I thought Ethereum was going to see further flows. It's early in its adoption cycle, and that will probably drive prices further than Bitcoin, and that seems to be playing out. With the others, there's so much going on, it's difficult to monitor. So I have kind of basically a relatively broad-based portfolio to capture some of that move when the tail goes up, i.e. the furthest risk out. And that happens in credit markets, equity markets, all over the place. In equity markets, in a bull market, you tend to get the big leaders first, which is where the safe money is, the blue chips. Then eventually people move to emerging markets, and then they move to frontier markets. And it's in order to get more bang for your buck in the middle of the cycle and generate some alpha. So it's not a comment per se on my relative view on the success of protocols or something like Bitcoin. It's nothing to do with that. It's about how do I make money out of this crypto investment whilst maintaining my level of interest in the overall crypto world. And so that's where I am now. Where would it be in a year's time? Maybe it's much more Bitcoin again. So it's an asset allocation strategy to try and enhance rewards. Bitcoin from a market structure has been incredibly bullish. The pattern now, the chart pattern looks very similar to a smaller version of the one from March to June 2020, where it exploded. We've had this lovely corrective phase. We see all the on-chain stuff. It's all going into good, strong hands. We had the China FUD. We've had a bunch of FUD. This usually, and there's no guarantees, usually October, November, December is ridiculously good, particularly at this point in the halving cycle. So structure, it looks amazing. So, okay, who are the buyers here? So most people who got into crypto came in via Bitcoin. That's always the case. It's the big daddy asset. And then people move out the risk curve, and that's pretty normal. So who's the next big buyer of Bitcoin? It's pretty clear to me who they are. It is the ongoing institutions. I mean, that just keeps going. And I think we'll see an acceleration in that, particularly if the price breaks out, because everybody's like sheep. They always want to follow each other. Secondly, it is the coming ETF. It's definitely going to, well, definitely, I don't know that, but I just have a very strong feeling it comes in the next, over this October, November, December period, and that will drive a huge amount of money in the space because it allows RIAs to allocate and ordinary individuals in a way that they can easily understand. And finally, I think we're starting to see noise from the sovereign wealth funds. So I know some of them, and I've talked about this before with you, is some of them are already allocated, but I think we're going to start to see more sovereign wealth activity in the space. So Ethereum, again, the charts look absolutely astonishing. The on-chain activity, the adoption is by far the largest of anything in the space. So it's huge what's going on. The move towards ETH 2.0 means that, at a simple level, everybody's going to stake everything they've got to get it there. And so that takes all the coins off the market. There's about 11% of all ETH in circulation. So it's almost unbuyable. So you bring a whale into the market, the price just explodes. So I've never really seen a setup as good as this in that respect. So I think it's a very high quality bet for the time being because of all of this stuff that's either off exchange, being staked, and there's no free supply, and demand keeps going exponential. So I like ETH overall. What's interesting is we're starting to see institutional adoption. So I spoke at Cowen's big event, and it wasn't about Bitcoin. It was solely about Ethereum, which took me by surprise. That's the first one I've done. It's kind of been referenced in other ones, but here I am now speaking to investment banks when they're asking me to come and talk about Ethereum. and just skipping Bitcoin, saying, well, we assume you know Bitcoin, but here's another opportunity. So I think there's a lot more adoption to come in that space. And I think there's going to be an ETF there too. And again, with this really restricted supply that's going on because of ETH 2.0, I think it drives prices a lot. I think there are some that are skipping over Bitcoin because they get their head around it in a different way, because they think of it as a way of playing the entire technology of the space. You know, it's hard for many of these institutions to stomach the narrative, the Bitcoin narrative of a store of value, that central banks are destroying the world, and a lot of this stuff, because that kind of goes against a bit of their business model. But Ethereum is not as, it doesn't feel like it's attacking them as much, because it's like, here's a space and we're building decentralized finance on it, and you know, everybody can participate. It doesn't feel that they have to change their internal narratives. So some are finding it just a bit easier to get their heads around what it is without kind of going against or kind of exposing the Wizard of Oz, which is the central banks and what they're doing to currencies overall. So all I do is look at adoption effects, because I'm not smart enough to figure out what changed better than what and why they want to build on it, et cetera, et cetera. But interestingly, as I've mentioned before, Ethereum is exactly following Bitcoin in 2017 in both price and price structure. Bitcoin is following Bitcoin 2013, which is fascinating, in price structure, but not in price itself. You know what? I bet you Solana is following Ethereum in 2017. If anybody was in that market at that time, Ethereum was the rocket ship that took everybody by surprise. And guess what? It's exact chart fit, and the prices are the same. So Solana is exactly following Ethereum. Ethereum's exactly following Bitcoin. It's like the magic is all in this network adoption, and it kind of all makes sense. The other two that are in that kind of fast growth, fast adoption phase where you see exponential price rises more than anything else is obviously Terra, probably Avalanche, and probably Polkadot. And I think, you know, they will all do well in this cycle. And like Ethereum, they'll all go down a lot later. And then from that, we'll see how it builds out. But it's bizarrely consistent. I never thought this would be the case, because you see all the people online, it's like, my project. But when you net balance it all out and just apply like adoption effects and do these things look similar, they're almost identical, which is amazing.
We're at around 2 trillion today. If we were to kind of fast forward 5, 10, 15 years from now, where do you think this number can go, and kind of how do you get there?
So I think it goes very interesting. I've just got a chart of adoption of the internet, and crypto maps it beautifully, except the internet was growing at 63% a year when it had 150 million users, which crypto has now. So it was growing at 63% a year. Crypto is growing at 113%. So this is double the adoption rate of the fastest adoption of technology in all recorded history. So we've never seen anything like this. Extrapolate the maths, you get out to 1 billion people by 2024. So this is going to happen really, really fast. By the end of the decade, you're probably at 3.5, 4 billion people, so most of the world. What does that mean for asset prices? Well, almost all the major asset classes, whether it's equities, bonds, real estate, they're all kind of in the 150 to $300 trillion range. Now, we kind of know that most of those assets are going to go on the blockchain anyway, but let's ignore that. To put this where I think it's going, it's currently 2 trillion. I think a roughly fair value to fit in with the other asset classes is 200 trillion. So it's 100x. We've never had an asset do 100x of that kind of magnitude in all recorded history. I mean, we've never seen it before. None of us have lived through this. So this is, I think, going to be the largest generation of wealth that the world has seen in the shortest period of time.